What is going on, Spokane Man podcast? Today I have none other than the legendary 44-decade piano player with the Oak Ridge Boys, Ronnie Fairchild. Ronnie, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, hanging in there. It's hot. Boy, I'm telling you, it is warm.
So, like I mentioned, you've been playing with the Oak Ridge Boys for 4 decades, but your father, Tommy Fairchild, played, you know, with them before. How did you get in? How did you get involved? And what was your dad's piano influences like for you? Now, never mind. How are your father's piano expertise compared to yours? Do you still live up to try and be like him?
Well, you always want. I mean, he's a fine player. Always has been. I don't know how much he plays anymore, but certainly when I was little, uh, I used to go watch the Oak Ridge Quartet because he was playing with them. So from the time I was young enough to really want to get on the piano, he was like a hero. I mean, he was kind of like a Paul McCartney or somebody. I mean, so, and he actually played with a group, and it was a good group. I mean, that Oak Ridge Quartet were kicking some tail. I mean, that was a great group. And so you, I'd always go to watch him play. And yeah, there's no doubt a huge influence. Now, how do I compare to him? I think that's two different things. I stole some stuff from him, and, but I kind of took a little bit of a different path. And, once I got into the Beatles, and then Elton John, I mean, I hooked up with Rusty Golden when we were, good Lord, I don't know how young. Rusty could probably remember better than me, but we kind of learned to play together. We would put on records and we would learn those records. I mean, there's a couple of those records that we could probably still play to this day, but we were, the same age basically, and really kind of learned to play together. And then he and I both got in this band that was the coolest band in Hendersonville, Tennessee. They were older than we were, but I guess we were good enough players to make the cut, But then it's things just develop, and you get a road gig. I mean, good Lord, I was 14, and I went off and got a road gig, and then Rusty went off and did some stuff too. We kind of split at that point because we had to, But there's no doubt that was also a big influence thing. My dad went off, and once he left the Oaks, went with the Blackwood brothers. And it wasn't too long after that they hired me. Now here I am 16. I probably shouldn't have been doing it, but he was playing piano and I was playing like a Fender Rhodes and also playing guitar because I've always played multiple instruments with varying degrees of skill. But I played with him in the Blackwoods for I don't know, maybe a little less than a year, and I got to watch him every night. Yeah, there were a lot of big influences that came from him. You know.
Shout out, by the way, to Rusty Golden. Rusty, thank you so much for being on the show. And also, thank you to Jeff Panzer. Thank you to everybody watching. Feel free to ask questions to me and Ron or Mr. Fairchild because
No, that's my father. That's Mr.
that's your.
Fairchild. I'm just Ron.
But shout out to Rusty and thank you so much for being a great guest. Thank you for being articulate, and I'm trying to be like Rusty and trying to be like that interview. And so you you've been with the Oak Ridge Boys for 4 decades. What have been some of the highlights of the road? Obviously, playing shows every night. Is it the same kind of feeling that you have now to this day, like it was day one when you started?
Oh, no, 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 no. It's gone through, for me personally, because, we had a pretty stable band for 7, 8 years, no changes. And, that was one era. Then we entered a, sorry about the noise. Then we entered another era. And I'll bet, I mean, I don't know this for certain, but, there's there's been probably 7, 8, 9, 10 different eras, and they all feel different. And where it, they're not all good, they're not all bad. I mean, it's been a pretty wild ride, but each of them do feel different, and you can't replace what 1979 to 1987 was, because I mean, you take some guys, and rest in peace, some of these guys have passed on, but I'll say that Don Breland, Skip Mitchell, Pete Cummings, Fred Satterfield, me, Garland Kraft. Garland cut out a little bit into my tenure. We both played together for I don't know how long, but we had a run. I mean, you take guys that grew up together, and me, Pete, and Skip, and really Fred Satterfield too, in a different way, but the rest of us went to school together. And I'm at that point, you go back to 1981. I mean, we had some hits. There were, the group was doing good, and then all of a sudden, Elvira hits, and I mean, the day when I knew something was really rocking, we were playing someplace. I mean, we had already started to fill up the basketball rinks and the hockey rinks, and for somebody that's, I guess I would have been 22 years old at that point, and we go from the gig over to the hotel in the van bus, and we're getting ready to go in. We're going to go into the lounge, sit around, talk to people, and whatnot, and open the door. And I mean, it was packed with people. We couldn't get from the bus to the hotel entrance. And this is the band, not the four boys, not the four faces on Mount Rushmore here. This is just the band. And my goodness, we had police officers. It was like, is this Beatlemania? It's as close as I ever got. And for probably that 2-year run after Elvira, that was something that, anything we're doing today, nothing's going to replace that time. And I mean, we all got along good, and guys I went to school with who managed to be in the right place at the right time, got hired. I mean, they hired me when I was 21. I don't know anything now. Imagine what I didn't know at 21. And these guys took a chance on me and took me everywhere there is to go. And as the group changed through the 80s, we went through certain periods that were different. Different players came and went. And each of those bands, and now we've had so many players now that, I could only, Saloon, leaving Louisiana, those songs, I played them so many different ways because you kind of fit what you're doing into how the current band is playing it. And we've had some fine players, don't get me wrong. Now, the classic band, the one that, thank the good Lord, got me a CMA award. I mean, I'm the only one on my block that's got one of those, And that's the year. It was so funny. I'll never forget it. The boys were up for Vocal Group of the Year and lost. We were up for Band of the Year and won. And that was something that's unbelievable. And I'll tell you something about the Oak Ridge boys that nobody else would have done this. They gave us one of those awards. You know what it looks like, the glass bullet thing. They gave us one from the CMA, the boys, and those things were expensive at the time. I don't know what they cost, but it was high. The Oak Ridge boys bought 5 more of them so we could all have one. Now that shows a degree of class that I haven't seen out of anybody else. Let's put it that way. You ain't got enough time for me to tell the good things about what these guys are, but that's one of the very best. That's just how they treated us. But man, we had a really good time. 78. 87, 88, 89, we had Paul Uhrig, and even B. James Lowry came back and played for a little while. That didn't last very long, but boy, did we have a good group back then. I really enjoyed those days. And then you go through all these other players. Now, currently, we've got a whole nother band. Of course, I'm the only last man standing as far as the classic band, as I call it, but we got some fine players. I mean, we got a drummer now that'll put his foot right up your backside, and you will stay with him, So it's fun. I play those songs differently with Austin than I did with Fred Satterfield, for example. They're different players. They're both fine players, but I've just seen it change so many times that there are times when I go, okay, I see a song on the list. I don't know. How am I going to play this thing? You know, I mean, I've done it so many different ways, but that's the long answer to your question. But sorry about that.
How have you? What have you learned through your years with the Oak Ridge Boys?
Well, that would fill the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, when you think about being 21, and I've been with this group longer than I've been alive without them, you know, I mean, most of my learning, oh, they'd laugh if they saw this, has come from them. I mean, that became my family. And that's every man that passed through there, and even the subs and things like that. So I've learned how to play in different situations. People that aren't musicians don't know that you play and your show goes differently. If you're playing a club for 200 people, you sort of aim a certain way. But if you're playing, at the Superdome and some of those places that we were lucky enough to play, yeah, your show you learn how to expand and make it big. It's not intimate playing the Philadelphia Spectrum. You've got to be bombastic and things. You learn how to play differently and adjust your show and how you play for the venue that you're at. And everything that I know about show business, I kind of hate that term, but came from them. That's not all I've done in my career. I mean, I've done some other things too, but let's face it, this is most of my life and still is to this very day. So, man, I've learned everything, anything that I know, learned in large measure from being with this group. There's no question about that. There's no debate.
So you made mention, throughout all the band changes and with throughout everybody, kind of metamorphosizing into what it is today. A couple months ago, your steel player, Rex Wiseman, steel fiddle and mandolin player, Rex Wiseman, he got sick out on the road. What was it like trying to learn all these other songs on a synthesizer?
Well, certainly that's not the first time I've done that. I've replaced or filled in for everybody but the drummer. I played, I'll get back to Rex in a minute, but I even played B. James Lowry. Sadly, his father passed away. And we had the Cheyenne Rodeo. And I mean, that's a big rodeo when you play that. And we were still, kind of a bigger group back then. So you had, I don't know how many thousand people, 10, 20,000 people, but all of a sudden we got no guitar player. Well, this group's not can't really function that way. So I actually sequenced some piano parts and I kept a guitar around my neck throughout the entire show. So I play a little piano, play a little guitar. I've had to jump in and fill in. If there's no bass player, well, I play left hand bass. With Rex, of course, that scared the living crap out of me anyway, because without going into it, it was really bad. And, love Rex to death. And all of a sudden, you got to go in and you reprogram your keyboards. And that, in this case, me and the guitar player would just share the steel parts. We would just take those fills. But fiddle stuff, um, I just programmed piano up to, I did what we call a split in keyboards. And then past a certain note, it becomes a fiddle. Well, I've got these newfangled keyboards, and I always do try to keep the best keyboards. It costs me a lot of money to do that, but I always have the very best as long as I can do it. Thank you, Lord. And I had a great sounding fiddle. So I just covered the parts. If you got a man down, you stand up and you put your big girl panties on, and that's what you do. You fill in for him. Turns out we didn't have Rex for, I don't remember, maybe 2 months. And then he came back for one and then was out for one. So you got to remember what you did to fill it. But I can't play drums. I'm the worst drummer in the world. I wouldn't even sit on a kit because I'm not worthy. But I've had to fill in every other position. That's just something you do. It doesn't scare me. I don't even get blood pressure raised. I just say, okay, who's not here? What songs do we need to drop? How do I need to reprogram the keys? And you keep those, what we call patches, those preset sounds. because you're going to need them again. Somebody's going to get sick, God forbid, and we're going to have to just cover any way we can, and that's part of what I do. I take pride in that. The show is going to go on. If I'm sitting there, I don't mean this to sound bad, but I'm going to cover the parts, and I think that I would like to think they take some comfort in that. Let's put it that way.
So first off, I want to say I I call you the jack of all trades because you really do can master anything you touch. I mean, I remember when you guys were here in Spokane, Washington, uh, before the boys flew on a private plane to go sing for President 41 for his memorial service. I remember watching you, the way you would interact with Dwyane when they were doing Y'all Come Back Saloon, and he would walk over to the microphone. He would walk over with the microphone and hand it, and you would do something funny with it. How did that ever come to be about? Does that happen?
We're all the time messing around. I mean, since time immemorial, we have always had a lot of fun, and Dwyane is one of my well, he's probably my most frequent foil. And some of the stuff that we do, I know it probably doesn't look like it makes a lot of sense, but all he has to do, I've just known him all my life. All he's got to do is just turn around and look at me with one eye, and I know what he's thinking. And we just find things that are funny. Maybe there's somebody funny in the crowd. Somebody comes up and does something stupid, and we're just playing. Me and Scotty Simpson, the current bass player, we do that all the time. I've had so many fans come up and say, "What is it you two guys are laughing at back there?" And of course, it's the old. There's no way I can tell you that. It's that's all private. But we do try to have a good time while we're doing what we do. Uh, there had been a couple times where I had to quit playing. Dwyane had me laughing so hard that I was on my knees. I mean, I probably missed an entire verse, but nobody loses their cookies over that. And it was funny. I forget what it was, but could have been anything. Those guys are hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, Golden, my goodness, that's one of the funniest men alive. Anytime Joe's talking and there's no song being played, if you see William take that little old slow Alabama walk up to the microphone, something's coming out of his mouth that you're going to be laughing at. And I look forward to those times. It was fun.
Were you on the show? And when how is Rex, by the way?
Rex seems good. He's back out full speed. There are times where I remember we did this private thing in Dallas here recently, and for some reason we had to walk up 4 flights of stairs, which frankly we all should be doing more of that. And it was a little tenuous, little things like that. But I'd say he's 90% back, and he's playing fine. And he needs to take a little bit better care of himself. Look who's talking. But hopefully this thing won't swim up and bite him on the boo boo again.
You are. I can see why it's so fun working with you guys because I mean, you're one funny man, and how is it like working with iconic groups? Do you still get that not nervous feeling, but do you still get that excitement like, oh my gosh, I might be here, I might be the oldest one here besides William and Dwyane, but I'm still playing music at this high rate? Does it ever excite you as much as
Well, yeah, you got good days, you got bad days. I mean, sometimes I pick on this song, but leaving Louisiana, I look down at that set list and I say, if I have to play this one more time, I'm going to bleed out. You know, so it's not always a picnic, but then there are shows where you go like, I'm actually getting paid to do this. I mean, I get my $60 a day. I don't care, if it's one show or two. Um, but again, I think you lift it in different things. I love it when a group we don't have opening acts too many other times, but if we have an opener that I respect or we open for somebody huge, I have to pick on Kenny Rogers. I mean, to me, I was one of the biggest fans of Kenny. To me, that man was complete class. I mean, I'm just a piano player. I'm just in the band, and I like to sit out in my chair outside the bus. And Kenny would walk by when he's getting ready to do his set. Well, I'm in there with my little book or whatever, and Kenny would always remember my name. That always meant the world to me. When we went on stage to do a Kenny Rogers show, every person on that stage lifted up the back of their pants and said, "We better bring him." It's like a ball team at the World Series. That's cool. And we've done shows. We played for, I'll never forget this. I had not been with the group a year. We played Giant Stadium up in Jersey. If I remember right, 55,000 people. Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and we're on there. We had not even had Elvira yet. So man, I was like, you better bring some game here. That's Waylon, and that's Johnny Cash. Anytime he walked in a room, buddy, my back, was just like that's Johnny Cash. So I get a big thrill out of that. Restless Heart, we did shows with, and that still may be my favorite group. I've had the opportunity to work with them many times over the years in recording. I've never got to play with them. I had my chance. Dave Ennis took his parents to China one time for a month, and I was the guy that was gonna fill in for Dave if they had any dates. They didn't have any dates. That always got to me, but yeah, I love when we get to play with other people. You know, that's there's something about lifting it up for that.
So, what is it like? I want to do this one by one individually. How is it like working with each one of the members? We'll start with Joe Bonzo. What is Joe like on stage, off the stage? What does his friendship mean to you?
Got to go back to the size of the Encyclopedia Britannica, um, and that's a hard one right now because Joe's going through some things now that I would be willing to take on myself to get off of him. But Joe is the same on and off. That man lives to be there, and I just like last weekend. I know it killed him to not be there, more so than it would have me. Now Rudy, God bless Rudy Gatlin, that's a dear friend of mine, but Joe and I just go back in so many ways. I mean, we were tennis players together back when we were both in really good shape. I actually had, I mean, I was hitting good. Joe played good. We used to try to kill each other on the tennis court. But our relationship goes, it's just there's so many different paths. We're both boaters. Joe was always a power boater, and I was what they call a blowboat guy. I've got a sailboat. I've had it for 22 years, and I live on it when I'm in Nashville. Uh, so I'd see him out on the lake. We just have so many things that are in common. You know, we he's just a guy that. And I go back to last weekend. It was really difficult to play songs that I play every night because when one of those four guys are not there, the entire tenor, no pun intended, of the show changes. I'm hearing Rudy sing "My Baby's Genuine USA," whatever. I'm so used to hearing Joe do it that it was a little difficult. Even though he kills it, but Joe, I can't imagine there'd be no Oak Ridge Boys without it. But that's true of all four of them. We've had this conversation many times, but each of them, again, I go back to my Mount Rushmore metaphor, if that's what it is. There's four faces on there, and that will never change.
What is it? What is the insight look at Dwyane Allen? What is he like? Is he the practical jokester that everyone thinks he is, or is he more the business minded?
I think both of those are true. As the practical joker thing, Lord have mercy, that is one funny man. And we've just got so many things. You got to remember when he joined up, my dad was the piano player. So I've known the guy all of my life. And, I've worked with him. And even before they hired me for the group, he had a recording studio that they used to hire me to play in there. All of us, that Rusty, Pete, all those guys that I told you about. But Dwyane is a complex individual, more so probably than even Joe in a lot of ways. It's fair to say that if Dwyane hadn't been as dedicated and see, he's 24/7 Oak Ridge. I always kid around. I say I'm going to buy Dwyane Allen a set of golf clubs, because eats, drinks, sleeps Oak Ridge Boys. Had he not done that and been that dedicated towards keeping the wheels of those buses running, there would be no Oak Ridge Boys right now. I think no one would argue that point. Sometimes does that get hard? Well, sure it does. Hard decisions. But yeah, he is a practical jokester. Believe me, I got a lot of stories, and I'll try to keep my mouth shut on those. But he's also very much a leader of that, and just one of the dearest friends I've got. I'd take a bullet for him today if I had to do it. There was one night I thought I'd have to, but you know,
What's the inside look at Richard Sturban? Is he as quiet as he is on stage?
yeah, he's there's not a lot of change. Richard's a shy fella. For somebody who is so noticeable and so well liked, I mean, Richard is very shy. He has a self confidence problem. We laugh because sometimes when he's got a line to sing, he'll turn around to me and Scotty and he'll be mouthing the words coming up. And I say to him, Rich, come on, man, you're one of the Oak Ridge Boys. You've been singing these songs for 50 years. You don't need, go up there and be you. Stop worrying about it. He says, well, I don't know. Why is it anybody says anything about Richard, we always go, well, you got to do like that. That's a funny thing. But he is one of the funniest cats I know. I mean, Richard, he'll turn back to me sometimes and I'm right behind him. And he'll pull out one of his ear monitors. And I know that there's going to be something funny coming. So I'll pull out one of mine and then the two of us just start laughing. And I mean, he can just come up with a line that'll crack you up. And he's a dear friend, again, a very shy guy. But there is no Oak Ridge Boys without Richard Sturban. Aaron McCune is one of my favorite singers. That's a fine bass singer. And I mean, I worked with him when he was with the Gold City Quartet. So I've known him for, good Lord, a lot of years. Of course, now Daly and Vincent, and he's working with William and the boys. He is a fine singer. He's come out with no rehearsal and sang Richard's part and did one hell of a job on it. But you know what? It ain't Richard. Richard it's just an irreplaceable force. Again, I go back to the four faces on Rushmore. I mean, everyone's had a sub at some point or another. And
So, and one more. I know we're saving William for last, but I think you could go on and we could all go on and on about William and really all the Oak Ridge Boys. But what's the inside look on William? What is he like?
I would say he's exactly as he appears. He is a funny, funny individual. He can be quiet. He can be not quiet. Um, he's so iconic. I mean, 40 something years ago when he started growing that beard, this is a good looking man. I mean, Golden in the gospel days. I mean, go look at those pictures, man. There wasn't a woman in America that wouldn't have thrown themselves at him. He might kill me for saying that, but William was just a good looking hunk of man. Wish I looked that good. But see, when he grew all that beard and that hair, he became the face. Dwyane, you talk about Dwyane. There was one time when I was sitting with Dwyane somewhere and he says, well, should I do the Dwyane impression? No, I better not. I have impressions of all of these guys, believe me, and they are spot on. Yes, sir, I take great pride in that. But Dwyane said, I can walk through any airport in America and nobody recognizes me. He says, William takes 5 steps and everybody knows who he is. And that's the truth. He's iconic. He's bigger than life. He's like a rock star, sort of I mean, Mick Jagger or something. If Mick walks in the room, he's going to have the room. Golden walks backstage, that last 10 minutes before the show, maybe there's a meet and greet, not anymore, but everybody's standing around talking. When Golden walks in, here's this vision. Now sometimes he plays that up. I know he does. William, if there's a chance to stick the knife in a little on something, William will do it. And it's always funny, well, most of the time funny. And I don't know, his relationship with me, always been good. He It just wouldn't be right with him there. When Michael Sykes had to come out, William got sick a couple of years ago. In fact, several of us did, and that's hurtful. I mean, I don't like any of my brothers down, but William was out for, I don't remember, was it 2 months or something like that? Well, you get Michael Sykes. That's a dear friend of mine. And Michael is a fine singer. You're not going to hear any bad notes, but Michael Sykes, just like Aaron McCune, just like Rudy Gatlin, and there have been a couple times when Dwyane had a sub. It's good, it's fine, but it's not the Oak Ridge Boys. Try to imagine an Oak Ridge Boys without William. I'm sorry, you can't. You're not going to talk me off that fence. You know.
I want to make one little quick thing, and we'll wrap this up. And thank you, Ron, for being here, and thank you so much for dedicating your time. And I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed being here. But I want to ask you about hockey. I know that we both share a love for hockey. How did that get started?
I've always loved hockey. When I was a kid, the Boston Bruins, back when Phil Esposito and Bobby Orr and all those guys, man, they would play one game a week on back when there was only three channels in PBS. And I got into hockey, and then I stayed into it, and I got to be friends with a lot of people, that are now all retired. That's one reason I don't watch hockey anymore. To me, it's not the same game, but the era of Paul Coffey and Wayne Gretzky and Mike Bossy, uh, people that I met and got to hang out with. Uh, there's so many of those people, and the jersey collection that I have, I've got game worn jerseys. I don't know what this stuff is worth, but I was the biggest hockey fan, especially in the late '70s, and until about the time most of my Oiler buddies had retired. I kind of lost it for me, but man, I was the hockey fan. I tried to play, and I even got on a little team of people, but somebody knocked me into the boards one day. I thought I was going to make a run down the right wing, and this guy come over and knocked the living crap out of me. And I said, I think I'm gonna play some piano. It's a little bit safer than getting your clock cleaned.
Well, Ronnie, Ron, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. And thank you for, you know, being not the oldest member of the Oak Ridge Boys, but being the dedicated piano player that you are, and just thank you for and I'm lifting you up in my prayers, and I'm lifting Joe up in my prayers. And
Please do.
how's he doing?
Uh, I think he's recovering. He's doing good. I pray that that he's doing everything they tell him to do. Because at this point, those doctors know what the heck they're doing. Sometimes we defer.
Yeah.
You can ask, I can help you with piano or guitar or something, but I can't help you with medicine. Nobody needs to be listening to me. But from what I hear, he's on the mend. It might take a little bit of time, but that's the thing that causes me the most angst is we got a soldier down, and I don't like it.
That's
You
right.
know, and I'll be here until they tell me not to get on the bus. I guess so far they've never told me to stay home, so I keep showing up. I kid around with people and I say I'm just here until they find somebody they like, and that's pretty much my stock answer when people ask me why I've been here so long.
Well, thank you, and I hope your barbecue business takes off as well. I could not let this interview not go, and when I'm in Tennessee, I'll call you and say, Ron, I need your barbecue.
Yeah, I love doing it, man. I mean, they make fun of me. A lot of people do, but I lost my grill. The thing froze up, and I just haven't gotten to replace it. But I miss making my turkeys and ribs, and I still my brisket's no good. But by George, I make the best rack of Memphis style dry rub ribs that you'll eat. I will say that.
Well, when I come to Tennessee, I'll hit you up on that offer, and I'm just kidding. But Ronnie, thank you so much for being here, and thank you guys, the Spokane Man podcast, for watching and listening. Where faith, family, music, and unity is all one. Unity brings music, faith, and family. Not in that order, but it, you know. I want to thank you, Ronnie, for being here, and I want to thank you guys for watching. May God be with you and your family in this time of hard times that we're all going through, but and also make mention that it's okay to be different. You don't know what somebody's going through. Thank you, Ron.
Yes, sir.